Hi, this is Jenya from Rose Tax and Financial, and I wanted to walk you through either the new client form or the recurring client form. They're very similar, so if you're a recurring client, you can watch this as well. There are only a couple extra questions that won't be on your form. Um, so new client form, please fill this out. Like read every line. It's only 2 pages. There are a lot of tax preparers that send out like a 24-page thing that you have to fill out. So I've really tried to keep it to 2 pages, but still a lot of people aren't filling out every line that applies to them, and that's problematic. So um, do give us your social, your name, date of birth, all this information. If you have a spouse, they go over here. Are you single, married, filing joint, married, filing separate? These are all self-explanatory. Just what's your filing status? Do need your driver's licenses, state issue date and expiration date. That was a new rule in 2018. Okay, if you have a child that you are going to claim on your return, I do need you to fill out a dependent form for each child. So photocopy the dependent form, as many kids as you have. Um, that's an important form. I'm making a separate video for that, so do watch that one if you have a kid that is going on your return. Um, and on that video, I'll talk about what age kids can go on the form and all that, all the details about that. So, how'd you find us? Referred by whomever. Um, did you have health insurance the whole year? If you bought it on the ACA, the Health Exchange Marketplace, um, we do need to have the 1095A to put your return together, because that is going to tell us how many subsidies you had and if any needs to be paid back or if you're going to get any extra money from it. So make sure you include that. If you didn't have health insurance, note which months you didn't. Right now, we're about to do 2019 returns. There's no penalty, but the penalty may come back later, so I'm just going to keep it on the form. I didn't want to get rid of that field. So do note if you didn't have health insurance. Note how much money you spent this year on higher education, college, university. Note if it was for you or your spouse, and if it was for a dependent, there's a space for that on the dependent form. And whether it was undergraduate or graduate, and include the 1098T, please. We do need that from the institution. If you don't have one, you can go to their online, to their website and download it. It should be there somewhere. It should say like year-end tax document or something like that. Note what state you are a resident of for the whole year, and if you're a part-year resident, put the 2 states, just so we make sure that we're getting the right states on your tax return. We should be able to see that on the W-2, but not always. So just make sure you note that. If you moved, I would love to know the date you moved and from and the to. If you just moved within the same city, you don't need to put that or anything. And only military, currently in the tax law for 2019, only military get this deduction. So you don't have to put how much you spent if you're not military, because there's no deduction for that. Unless you're self-employed and you moved as part of your business, that's something we could talk about for sure. So note here, if you made traditional IRA or Roth contributions outside of your work, this does not count your 401k or your Roth inside your 401k or anything like that. So if you did that, I don't need to know about it because it's already been dealt with on your paychecks. But if you made contributions outside of work, I'd like to know, and whether it was for you or your spouse and how much. Note that I think the new maximum is $6,000. That you can put in with a $1,000 catch up for over 50. So $6,000 or $7,000. Hopefully you didn't put in more than that, because you might have to pull some back out because there's a penalty for that. Note if you have a 401k from a previous job and want to talk about the benefits of rolling it over. This is a new question for 2019, and I do need to ask if you have any interest in virtual currency, Bitcoin. So do mark if you have any, and send me the documents. Check mark here if you bought a car or a boat or an RV, a large purchase, not a house, but just a large purchase that you maybe paid a bunch of sales tax on, because that can go towards your itemized deductions. Um, the tax deductible portion, this is so lame. It's only a few dollars every year, but it is deductible, the tax deductible portion of your annual car registration, only if you live in a state that bases the price on the value of the car. So if you have a state that gives you a flat, Illinois is $101 a year, or has been for many years, um, that doesn't count. But if the state bases it on the value of the car, then I definitely want to know because I can throw it on your Schedule A. I own my own home. The value of the mortgage is less than 750,000. If it's more, note, because we'll need to pull out some of your mortgage interest because we can't take any mortgage interest that's over 750,000. So, I mean, not that the interest is over 750,000, but the interest is based on an amount that you owe that is over 750,000. So, um, if you pay interest on a home equity loan, or a home equity line of credit, either one, um, we just need to know what you spent the money on when you borrowed the money, because if you spend it on the home, then it's deductible. And if you spend it on other stuff, it's not. So do mark that there. Um, Donated money to charity, whether you own a second home, that's not a rental. These are simple. Stuff you dropped off at charity, everyone should have at least $500 in this space here, because $500 is the maximum we can take without noting what it was. But if it's over 500, you can just note what it was, and we can, nothing over 5,000 though. If over 5,000, you would need an appraisal. So, something in that range there. But if you drop a few bags off at Goodwill every year or whatever, definitely put $500, because just, that's something everyone does. And you only need to keep one receipt. And I don't need any of the receipts. Please don't send any Goodwill receipts with your stuff. I beg of you. um, okay, spent money out of pocket on medical. If you did not spend over 10% of your income, if you make $100,000 a year, if you didn't spend over 10 grand, there's no point in putting anything there. Just ignore it and move on. But if you did, if you're not sure how much you spent, but you think let's say you think it's maybe $5,000, um, and you're not quite sure, but you don't want to sit there and count up receipts for like days, just put 5,000 and maybe write in there, this is not a perfect estimate, or like, let me know if this is deductible and I'll get you an actual real number, because that I don't want to waste your time, because it's rare that the medical is deductible, but for some people it is. So okay, the next question. I'm not a full-time employee of a company and I pay for my own health insurance premiums. If you're a full-time employee of a company, and I don't need to know anything about, you don't need to check that box, and you don't need to put how much you spend on your premiums. Because if you're a full-time employee and you're only paying a little bit, that doesn't count because you're covered by your employer. So how many miles did you drive doing volunteer work? How many miles did you drive for doctor visits? Now, if you're not taking the medical, this doctor visits one is pointless. So don't worry about putting it in if you don't have enough to take the medical. But feel free to throw it in, and we can always just try, see if you're able to take it. Check this box if you have over 10,000 in a foreign bank account. You will need to fill out an FBAR. Sent in quarterly estimates. If you sent in your own like payments outside of work, this is nothing to do with what was withheld on you at work. This is if you literally sat there and write a check 4 times a year, or maybe once you did it. However many times you did, note the dates and the amounts that you sent in. This IP protection pin is new. It's it's a new security measure that the IRS has instituted. So if they're only doing it in like 20 states right now. I know Illinois is one and New Mexico is one. Um, but if you did this, I'd like to know the PIN, because I can't e-file you without it. Or if you did this because you had an identity theft, I'd like to know the PIN. If you didn't do it, just completely ignore that question. They are going to open up the program to everyone eventually, but right now they're only doing it in like 20 states. So for you that are recurring clients, you're not going to have this question about last year, right? Because I did your return last year, so I know. But those of you that are new, just want to know about how much you received last year and how much you received as a refund from the state. That has to be that has to be an exact number because that may be deductible. Um, or if you owed money to the IRS or you owed money to the state, make sure that's a perfect number because that's a deduction as well. So deposit my refund, routing account number. Look through this list, like really try to like read every line of this list if you don't mind, because people forget things every year, and then they get a notice later that says, "Hey, you didn't report this, and you owe this much money, whatever." So really try to be really thorough to make sure that you have all your documents. And then I know this is the tiniest little section. It used to be bigger, but I had to enter more lines on here, so. Um, just use this area for anything else that wasn't asked already. If you receive alimony or anything interesting. Um, Check this box if you want a printed copy of everything for $10 extra. If you don't, everything's accessible in the portal and you can just download it and print it on your end. And then please read and sign below. This basically just says that I or we, whoever's preparing your return at my business, um, we're going to put it together from what you gave us, and we're not going to like ask you for things that we don't know about. If you had something with us last year, like a 1099-R, let's say you had a retirement distribution, and you don't have it this year, we will say, hey, did you do that again? To try to make sure, but sometimes there's no way for us to know what you did if you don't note it. So anyway, that is that. Our favorite way to get these is actually lately fax. Fax is fantastic. Just if you don't have a fax machine, you can go to like UPS, the FedEx store, any of those places, Office Max. They all have faxes, and you can just send all the papers through. We'll get them immediately. They'll come into my email, and we'll print them on our end. And it's very safe, actually, with regards to digital things. It's safe to do faxing. If you want to send them, that's totally fine. If you're a Rose Tax and Financial client, your envelope that we sent you will have 8 Pinion Avenue in Cedar Crest, New Mexico. That's my address. If you're an airline taxes client, you'll have my office manager's address in Elgin. Just send it to wherever the envelope says to send it. Either way, it's going to get to us. Um, but feel free to also upload it to the portal if you know how to do that without driving us crazy. Sometimes people upload 17 separate documents and it takes like half an hour to download all their stuff and get it all compiled. So if you don't know how to download everything or upload everything in one PDF or maybe two at the most, then just fax it. It's just going to be easier. Anyway, let us know if you have any questions. We're always here for you, and we'll talk to you soon.